Hello and welcome back to the shop. So before we get to the subject of today's video, I just want to say thanks to everybody for the well wishes towards my father and my wife. So my wife is doing fine, besides normal morning sickness and tiredness and that sort of thing. Pregnancy is progressing along perfectly fine. And my father is actually in really good spirits. He'll be having surgery early next week, so he'll plan is that from to have the surgery, hospital will keep him for a day or two, and then if no complications, he should be sent home to recover, and then only time will tell what happens after that. So hopefully everything works out okay with that. As far as the subject of today's video, what we're going to do is make the lockdown bolt for the carriage lock. So if you haven't seen last week's video, I made the carriage lock for the 13-inch lathe. You can go check out that video right up here. And today we're going to make the bolt to clamp it down. So the original bolt looks something like this, only longer, kind of like it's just a square head bolt. And the wrench for your lantern tool post fit that same bolt and allowed you to use the same wrench to lock it down. So we don't have the bolt is missing, we have to make it. So decided, why don't we just make a bolt with an integrated handle that can just hang out on the side there. So made it so that it clears everything, and as far as dimensions goes, it's not really critical, just enough so that this handle doesn't interfere with the compound as you swing it around. The only thing you need to do is just make sure that this length here is long enough to engage the threads in the carriage lock, and you get enough threading in there for it to get a nice good bite in there. So we're going to do some plain turning, we'll do some threading, single point threading in the lathe, we'll also do some taper turning on the handle and this little piece here. Now I'm going to be using the mill to drill everything. You can do this entire thing on the drill press, and actually I did a very similar thing with the lockdown handle for the AXA tool post on my 9-inch lathe. I didn't have a mill at the time, and I was able to just use a drill press. If you're going to use a drill press, I suggest you get a really good, or at least a decent vise. Something like this palm grin, something where you have some nice flat sides and you can clamp down to it, and nice parallel clamping surfaces, because you're going to have to put this piece in here at an angle to be able to drill it. Also, another thing too is, since you're going to be drilling something round, you got to find the center of it, which is easy on the mill with the center finder, not so much on the drill press. But what you can get is one of these little guys. So this goes right into your chuck, and you can see this pivots, and there's a line right here and a line on this little pivot, and when they line up, that means that this rod is in the center of this V-notch. So what you do is just take whatever round part you want to drill, sit that sucker in there, and then you can move it around until those lines line up, and then you know you're directly in the middle of the part. And these things are super cheap, you can get them anywhere. So right now, why don't we go over to the lathe and we'll start making our parts to make our little handle. Alright, so what we have in the lathe here is in the 3-jaw, which actually I'm pretty sure I've never used this chuck on camera except for at the old house. It just happened to be on here because I was turning some Delrin, and usually have the 4-jaw on here, just because a lot of times I have to turn parts around, but oh, got some use on the 3-jaw. We got some mystery metal in here. I have no idea what this is. I just know that it's not hard. It looks like it was a shaft at some point. It's got some galling up here, but this went through the scrap bin. It's perfectly fine for what we're doing. And we are going to turn this section here up until the Sharpie mark down to 3/8 diameter, and then we can single point our threads. Even our threads don't really need to be all the way up there. They only need to be about 1 inch to 1.25 inches deep, and the rest is just for length to get down to where the lock is. So we are going to single point the threads because, you know, we can, and what I want to do right now is just going to face this front, and then I'm going to put a center in here because we're going to be turning this down to 3/8, and I kind of don't want to flop it all the way over there because we're about 4 inches away from the, about 3.5, 4 inches away from the chuck. And this is 1-inch stock. I can't get it any further into the headstock of the 9-inch. So let me grab my glasses. machining fine, pretty soft stuff it looks like. Alright, just a little bit of a camera malfunction there. I was able to catch, but in the process I wasn't paying attention and managed to chip the edge of my carbide. So let's try that again.
There that is there. While I'm here, I'm going to take a light cut on the outside here just to clean it up. Okay, so we're getting set up to thread here, and before anybody asks me, I might as well show you this. So this is an Aloris threading holder. It's built directly into the holder itself. This is AXA 8 and it has a 60-degree threading tool, almost like the Armstrong ones. High-speed steel, when you need a little bit more, you grind some off. I also have a smaller version here that needs to be cleaned up, but you can see that's a lot smaller. Work great. If you can find one for cheap, definitely pick one up. And I got 2 cameras here going, so hopefully you can see some handwork going on. What we're going to do is just going to thread this for 18 threads per inch up to about there. That's more than enough for threads. And I have a stop set. I have this dial indicator set right here. So you guys in this camera, you can see as this comes around, once we hit 0, that's when we stop, okay? So I could actually set it a little bit more there. That looks fine there. That's more than enough. So once this carriage hits and we come around 0, we're going to disengage our half nuts, and that's going to be where we're going to stop every time, or as close to that 0 as we can. And that's going to allow us to thread without having to have a groove in there to let the threading tool fall into. So for right now, it's going to get close to the part, right about there. Get my hand wheel in a comfortable position here. I like it horizontal like this. I'm going to set 0 on this dial here. Okay. And what we're going to do, turn the lathe on, and we're just going to feed in compound until we touch. Okay, touch right there. I set 0 on the compound. Alright, we're going to feed in a little bit. I'm only going to take about 5/1000ths. We're going to wait for a number or a line to come around. Doesn't matter because we're cutting an even number of threads. My gearbox is already set. So there's a line. I'm going to engage. We're going to go until the 0 comes. Disengage and come back to the beginning. Set 0 again on the cross slide. And what we're going to do is just check and make sure that we are at 18 threads per inch. Which I had the correct leaf out, but which is right here. Or I'm sorry, 16 threads per inch. Get myself all confused. Okay, 16 threads per inch, and we're right in where we need to be. Alright, so we can continue to depth, which, if you look at your little gauge here, 16 threads per inch is 81 thousandths double depth of thread. So that'll give us a baseline to go at. You're feeding in at an angle on the compound here, so it's not going to be exact, but you know, you can go as fast or as slow as you want. This speed's perfectly fine for my pace. I'm going to feed in a little bit more. Engage. And back to the start. 0. Feed. Engage. Back to the start. Lather, rinse, repeat. Okay, so we just did a quick fit up. We made sure that everything fits in there nice, and it does. And I have this hand tight, and now we're just kind of going for a fit up. So when I put the handle in here, I want the handle to end up somewhere kind of in this position here. So it's hand tight now. I'm assuming about another quarter of a turn will give us full tightness, so I'm just going to make a mark on the side right there, right about that quarter of a turn, so that way that would kind of give us a decent starting place to time our threads. If we need to take some off the threads to get it exact, we can, but that'd be a good starting point for us. So now what I'm going to do is you tightened it, but you can't get it off. Are you kidding? Alright, hang on one second.
Okay, so we have this in my collet chuck. It's already faced off. I have the compound here set at 75-degree angle, so I want about a 15-degree angle. I want the handle to stick off at about a 15-degree angle. So we're just going to make a couple passes here until I get down to where I can fit the handle. The handle is going to be 1/2 inch, and it's going to be tapered down to 3/8. So. Okay, there it is. So now we can go over, excuse me, we can go over to the mill and we can drill our hole.
Okay, so we just did a quick fit up. We made sure that everything fits in there nice, and it does. And I have this hand tight, and now we're just kind of going for a fit up. So when I put the handle in here, I want the handle to end up somewhere kind of in this position here. So it's hand tight now. I'm assuming about another quarter of a turn will give us full tightness, so I'm just going to make a mark on the side right there, right about that quarter of a turn, so that way that would kind of give us a decent starting place to time our threads. If we need to take some off the threads to get it exact, we can, but that'd be a good starting point for us. So now what I'm going to do is you tightened it, but you can't get it off. Are you kidding? Alright, hang on one second. There we go. Okay, let's just remark that real quick. So now what I'm going to do is just measure from here, the start of the taper, to the top, and I'm just going to scribe a line halfway on there, and that'll give us our center mark for our handle in this direction. And then when we get it in the mill, we can center find this stud, and that'll give us our center line in the other direction. Okay, so all we have here is just a 15-degree angle plate. We're going to put that in the vise. We have a V-block here. I'm going to put that in the vise, and we're going to sandwich this sucker pretty much with that blue line up. Doesn't have to be perfect, but, you know, eyeballs are fine. So I'm going to go ahead and get this up a little bit more. We're in that neighborhood there. Again, Doesn't have to be perfect, as long as that's more or less vertical. And make sure we're nice and tight. Okay, so now I have my edge finder in here. What we're gonna do is come over this side here, and we're gonna edge find this stud, and that's gonna give us our center line. Okay, take two with the correct end mill. So I got a regular center cutting end mill in there. Okay, let me change out for my drill chuck and the drill bit, and we'll come right back. Okay, so grab some oil. This is just a starter drill. Probably don't need it, but you know. Okay, I'm going to be doing 3/8 24 mainly because that is my only size I have a bottoming top in. I don't have a 3/8 16 bottoming top, so let's do fine thread. Basically just don't, we want to get deep enough to get a nice thread in there, but we just don't want to go through the other side. Alright, so we got a piece of 1/2 inch in there. I'm going to face it off, and then we're going to take it down to 3/8 of an inch by maybe about a 1/2 inch or so, and then we can whittle off whatever we don't need and kind of fit up to our part. Okay, so get the dial set with oil. this is nice and perpendicular, so we're just going to use that to start it. And started. And there we go. Now what we're going to do is we are going to make a long taper on that to that 3/8 edge. That's not too bad. Let's see how it looks. There we go. Looks pretty good to me. Ready? I'm going to reset my compound back, and we'll pull this out to our part off length. We actually turned out pretty good on the timing of the threads, so that's loose right there, and it's not blocking my thread dial, and it's a little bit beyond 90 degrees, and tight is right there, and I can still swing this over even with that down and clear it. And that's at middle of the height. This still needs to be adjusted, but if I pull this all the way back, I just nick it there. But I'll be honest with you, most of the time your compound's going to be somewhere right about there, so I don't think it'll matter. And worst case scenario, I can still unthread this if I need to. So I'm pretty happy with that. So you can see, or right here, if I unlock this, unlock, we move nice, and then here's lock, and I can move it if I push, but now it takes a whole lot of strength to push that carriage off. Plus I don't have the rear gib on yet. I had to take that off to take this saddle off, so I'm happy with that. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you on the next one.